So the first thing that I have for you is a downloadable cheat sheet. You're seeing it on the screen right now. It's linked in the description, and this is going to be tremendously useful for training volunteers and establishing shared language that we can use going forward. Simply put, there are 4 shot sizes that we're going to be using. There's close, medium, cowboy, and full. Here's what close looks like. We're gonna use this sparingly on singers and speakers. It's great for detail shots though, like on the drums here. Next comes medium, and a medium shot is characterized by the bottom of the frame hitting the waist of the person in the shot. Here's what that looks like on a speaker. Here's what it looks like on a singer, and here's what it looks like on an instrumentalist. Moving to cowboy. Now, with a cowboy shot, instead of the bottom of the frame hitting the subject's waist, it's gonna hit mid-thigh. My understanding is that the cowboy shot was widely used in Western films, hence its name. It's used everywhere these days. Here's cowboy on a singer. Here it is again on another singer. And here it is again. All that leaves us with now is full. So this is full on our speaker. Importantly, with full, you always want to leave a bit of headroom. Now, most every example that you just saw was our 4 shot sizes straight onto our subject. To take this one step further, we can combine different shot sizes with different angles. So this right here is cowboy 90, our cowboy shot size on a rough 90-degree angle from our stage instead of straight on. Here's cowboy 90 on our speaker. Similarly, here's full 90 on our speaker. And if you imposed a rule of thirds grid onto this frame, our camera operator has done a nice job composing this shot, putting our speaker onto that vertical left rule of thirds line, and then having them look across the frame. Here's that same camera position framing up a full 90, but during worship this time. So those are our 4 shot sizes: close, medium, cowboy, and full, with a bunch of examples and in different configurations. And now that we have this shared language, let's plot where each of these cameras actually gets positioned and set up in our sanctuary. And then we can talk about which camera should be getting each shot and how to train volunteers on each camera as well. I've sketched up another diagram for you, put it into a cheat sheet. Again, it's linked in the description. Make sure to download it. You're seeing it on the screen right here now. This is our sanctuary. We're gonna start by placing our first camera on a tripod, line it up with roughly the center of the stage, back of the room. If and when you're ready to add a second camera, we're gonna put it right next to camera 1 on a tripod, center of the stage, back of the room. If and when you are ready to add a third camera, we're gonna put this one on a roughly 90-degree angle from our stage. This is stage right, house left, on a tripod again. Finally, if and when you're ready to add a 4th and 5th camera, these are going to be our mobile cameras on stage. So these are handheld, one on stage right, another stage left. Now, I want you to think of it this way. Irrespective of your church size and aptitude for this kind of thing, this is how you can plot out cameras in your sanctuary in order of importance. Just start with 1, add a 2nd, then a 3rd, and so on. Could you add more than 5? Yes. But then you're starting to get into more specialty shots like ultra wide that show the whole room, or cable cams, dolly cams, the kind of shots that are nice palette cleansers, little sprinkles on top, but they're not the shots that you're relying on for the vast majority of your service. These 5 are the cornerstones. And the point of this video isn't to get into the exact cameras to use. We have a guide dedicated to that. You can download it, linked in the description. That being said, I also don't want to just show you a diagram. So let's go inside my church's sanctuary to show you these real cameras, how they're positioned, and the frames they're capturing. Walk into our church's sanctuary through the main doors, and you will see our camera 1 and 2 on risers at the back of the sanctuary. We have a row that you can walk through, so we've got camera 1 to the right of that row, camera 2 to the left of that row when you enter through the back of the doors, and then stage right at the edge of the front row, you'll find camera 3, again on a tripod. Finally, camera 4 and 5 are on stage, 1 on stage right, 1 stage left, keeping to themselves in the back or side of the stage so they're not getting in the way of the other camera angles. And just to visually illustrate this, here's an ultra wide shot of our sanctuary. Camera 5 is tucked away behind our percussionist. Meanwhile, camera 4 is in the shadows somewhere below this screen here. I literally cannot see her even on replay, so that's how they're staying out of the way of cameras 1, 2, and 3, even while they're themselves on the stage. Moreover, here's an example of camera 5. He's positioned himself right behind the drummer, and you can see on screen the shot that he's getting right here while he's shooting it. One more shout out to the cameras 4 and 5. Here's camera 4 getting her shots as needed while still worshiping and locked in to her 3rd, 4th, or 5th time through that song on that given morning. But to this point, We've got our shot sizes with a downloadable cheat sheet. We've plotted out our camera positions throughout the sanctuary with a downloadable cheat sheet. Let's put it all together now and talk about training volunteers, which of these camera angles is the easiest, where you should start beginners and then progress them up to cameras that are more challenging, and some advanced maneuvers that you can try out as well. Doesn't really matter if you are a volunteer or staff member, because unless you come from a live production background, operating a camera requires a bit of training. Providing your people with the shot size cheat sheet will help you establish that shared language that we talked about, and what you mean when you call out a medium shot versus a cowboy shot. The thing is, not every camera should be getting every type of shot, which is important, so let's talk about that. To make things simple, the camera numbers progress in terms of difficulty and experience required. Camera 1 is easiest, camera 5 is the most demanding. So let's start with camera 1. This is our novice camera. But what makes it different from camera 2? They're both at the back of the sanctuary. Well, despite it being labeled camera 1 is not our lead camera in a multicam setup. That distinction, in fact, belongs to camera 2. The reason for this comes down to the angles we assign to each of the cameras, because camera 1's responsibility is a full shot. That's it. The camera is on a tripod. We're not asking camera 1 to mix up their shot size, just keep it on a full shot. And because their shot size is full, aka the widest shot size we have, very limited panning from left to right is required. In fact, that's really the only movement this camera operator is responsible for. So you can see why this camera can be given to a novice, because so little is required of them relative to the others. It's a great spot for volunteers to get their feet wet and learn the ropes in a low stakes environment. And when they're ready to move on up, their next step is beginner, and that is camera 2. Camera 2 is the camera angle we rely on the most. For shot size, they're going to be always in either medium or cowboy. And again, this is the camera that we're likely using more than any other, but it's not a close-up shot, and it doesn't require a ton of reframing, meaning despite its importance in the overall service, once you've learned the ropes of camera 1, you can take on camera 2 with relative ease. Yes, you need to pan left and right with the speaker and reframe from medium to cowboy as needed, but the biggest tip I can offer this camera operator is that you need to keep in mind the movement of your speaker, because the more shifty that your speaker is in terms of their movement back and forth across the stage, the wider you want to frame. You know, it's not fun being on a tighter shot size and feeling like you're in a tennis match getting whipped back and forth, trying to track a high energy speaker. Let's move to camera 3 now. This is intermediate skill level. The final camera that's still on a tripod. Physically speaking, this camera is positioned a lot closer to the stage than cameras 1 and 2. And that's the biggest reason why this camera is more challenging than cameras 1 and 2, because you're closer to the stage, you're going to need to reframe your shot size that much more frequently. You're also not one of the core camera angles, meaning you're there for variety. So you need to keep mixing it up in terms of framing. You got to be creative. For shot size, you're mostly sticking on medium. And by the time you've developed the skills needed at camera 3, it's time to get on the stage, ditch the comfort of the tripod, and go handheld with camera 4. And really, that is the biggest challenge of cameras 4 and 5. Compared to 1 through 3, you don't have the comfort and the fallback of the sticks, the tripod. And that makes this job more physically demanding and more mentally demanding. Camera 4 is going to stick with a medium shot, whereas camera 5 is going to stick with the close shot. And for us, we actually do this with lenses. Camera 4 might have a 24 to 70 mil zoom lens on their camera body, whereas camera 5 will have a 70 to 200 mil. And this is what makes camera 5 the expert level camera, even more difficult than camera 4, because camera 5 cannot go wide. And with a telephoto lens, your camera's going to be that much more shaky. The focus plane will be that much more narrow, which is why you need the most experience and skill to be responsible for camera 5. What's cool about camera 4 and 5 though as well is that because you're free of the tripod, you're able to capture more creative angles. We've already talked about shot size and shot angle. For cameras 1, 2, and 3, that's mostly what they're limited to. Sure, they can pan left, they can pan right, but that's mostly for tracking a moving speaker, not to inject creativity. For cameras 4 and 5, you have shot size that you can play with, angle, but also movement and focus. For example, you can rack focus on the keyboard or the drums, meaning you can start with one part of the frame in focus and then manually change focus using the barrel of your lens. Or, because your camera is handheld, you can move your body, and thus the camera, to track any part of the frame that you find compelling. Again, this is why the experience is needed for these camera operators. Not only do you need to know how to execute a move technically without introducing a ton of camera shake or losing focus, but you also need to know what kind of shots are useful and valuable. How do you pick that up? By spending time on cameras 1, 2, and 3 and seeing what cameras 4 and 5 are doing. So by the time that you've got camera 4 or 5 in your hands, you know exactly what types of shots with the combination of size, angle, movement, and focus are needed and preferred. Again, I'll point you to the 2 downloadable cheat sheets that are linked in the description. And if you're looking for more on camera production and training volunteers, check out the Church iPhone Filmmaking Masterclass, where we created an entire church mini movie using just an iPhone. And then we reverse engineer how to do it, showing you exactly how to do the same. It's linked in the description and coming up on the screen. And thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust.